Becky Lipscombe is from the United Kingdom, and you were involved in a talk where they were discussing how to use audio, podcasting, radio, that format, to push a cause or to influence culture.
To preserve culture, in a way.
To preserve culture.
Yeah, as a form of cultural transmission. And so there were different case studies, but I was talking about how we're looking at the situation of the Uyghurs in northwest China and how their culture is being so repressed by the Chinese state, and sort of telling stories around that using culture as a lens to sort of explore what's been going on there, and also to look at what happens to a culture when it's transplanted from its homeland and sort of spread in disparate diaspora communities around the world, and how that culture can kind of continue, how it changes, how it morphs. So that sort of stuff, that's what we're looking at.
It's a complicated story to try and tell, isn't it? How have you been doing it?
So obviously we can only speak to Uyghurs who are in exile or have been living abroad for some time. But we've had people speak to us that were detained in these detention centres, and they talk about how culture was used there. They were made to sing, for example, Chinese songs rather than Uyghur songs. They had to sing Chinese songs before breakfast or before getting fed. If they didn't sing, they wouldn't get food or they would be beaten. And one guy told us about a guy that came in to sing Uyghur folk songs and was very badly beaten by the guards. It was this kind of using culture as an act of defiance. And then we've spoken to people that that maybe have never been to Xinjiang itself, or the homeland, as they might call it, who have been born in exile but still feel very much part of a culture, even though there are parts of it that they've never been able to fully participate in. So lots of interesting stuff.
And Becky, these interviews, are they being done in person or over Zoom? Is it a mix?
We're trying to do most of them in person where we can. We will do some remotely.
And to make engaging content and engaging podcasts, it's difficult. But traditionally, some causes and subject matters have been left to public service broadcasters because they have the funding and often the remit to do it without having to get the monetary return. How do you find that balance in that you need to make something that is for a very good, worthy cause, but you have to make it engaging and very, very appealing as well to make it viable?
I actually think that this particular subject lends itself massively well to a greater appeal because the stories we hear are so dramatic. They're on such a kind of human level. There's stories of escape. We speak to a woman who took what's called the Pirate Road from Xinjiang using people smugglers to go through Thailand, Malaysia, get through to Turkey. I mean, just her route and the trials that she went through to get to somewhere she felt safe, that she could practice her religion safely. That was her motivation. I mean, just on a human level, it's crazy. There's another, a father we spoke to whose kids were taken and put into a Chinese state boarding school. They were not permitted to speak their own Uyghur language there, only to speak Chinese. When they came out, they couldn't speak Uyghur to their parents, and they still can't communicate with their grandparents in Uyghur. They're having to relearn it again. So, they're compelling stories.
They're compelling stories. Is any part of you worried about covering stories like this when we hear about China having agents in different countries that try and suppress this kind of information?
Yeah. Well, not for myself, but obviously the people that we speak to are incredibly brave to speak to us. And they do so because they feel they have a purpose and they feel it's their duty, really, to tell these stories. We have had quite a few that don't want to use their names, and we have to figure out ways to disguise their voices that's adequate. But a lot of the people that we speak to are just incredibly brave.
For you, what has been the most fulfilling part about working on projects like this?
I think it's just meeting these people, to be honest. Yeah, the privilege of spending time, and these are long interviews. They're not just half an hour here or there. We sometimes spend a day with them, and really get to meet the family. We've been treated so amazingly. Like, Uyghur hospitality is quite something. If don't go having had a meal, you need to leave plenty of space.
And Becky, finally, can I ask you about the medium itself of using audio to tell their stories and raise awareness for their cause? Using that medium as opposed to television or YouTube videos, why do you think it's specifically powerful doing it on podcast?
I think audio, radio, podcasts generally is really powerful. That's what I love. But one of the things we're going to try to do with this is also to use spatial sound, ambisonic sound, to really recreate scenes and situations from Xinjiang using archive recordings. So recreate soundscapes that you will no longer hear there using archive recordings. I think that would be quite special if we can pull that off.
Becky, it's an important story, an important cause, and we wish you all the best with it. Thank you so much.